Bruce, here we go. Look at it. We're both wearing dark
Bonnie,
clothes.
baby.
Bruce, welcome to an
Did we color coordinate, Ron? Did you get the memo? Was it
I
like a
did.
memo that went around?
No, this is a memo. I actually, for the viewers at home, I was wearing a hoodie because I wanted to be, we're going to talk about Batman today. So I was excited. And I was going to wear my blue hoodie that was kind of like that, like Silver Age Batman with the gray and the blue. And I was like, no. And I saw you being all delicious and good looking. I was like, come on, I got to step up my game.
Well, it worked, Ron.
Thanks, Bruce. Welcome to another R&B show. I'm recovering from a cold. How are you, Bruce?
Doing pretty good. Yeah. I just looking forward to another opportunity to kind of banter back and forth. So I'm glad you're feeling better. I know you're good to see you're doing well. You look well.
Thank you. I feel much better, but I'm so excited today about the topic. We're gonna be talking about the Batman that just came out, like I feel like it's like a month ago now, but it came out recently. And I've been waiting anxiously to hear from you, but I want to start off with just saying this, like, like sometimes when like people are like, well, I mean, I'm like not newly single anymore, but like I'm relatively newly single. It's been 4 years, and when you get to my age, that's like new, I think. And you always hear from people like, oh, like your time will come, you're gonna find your person. And I want to be sensitive today, Bruce, because my team is winning right now. And I know Lucasfilm is like your team. I just want to say, like, your person's coming, Bruce. Like, Obi-Wan looks, like it looks like a show. Like it looks like a show, like with people in it and stuff. So I just want to say, like, Bruce, I want to be sensitive because I'm really excited to talk about my peeps at DC today. And I want to be sensitive because I know you've had a really rough couple years and it hasn't gotten better.
Well, Ron, you might be feeling a little too good now because that was like a dagger right in my heart, man. But but you know what? It hurts because it's true. You have a good point to it. And yeah, I think we'll be able to kind of broach both with the focus obviously on the Batman, but I think there's a lot of intertwining with just all these kind of reboots and there's new takes on things and how do you rebuild certain franchise properties and all that. And there's a lot of parallels to be made. So I'm with you. Even after burying me 6 feet under, I'm still with you, Ron.
Well, I'm glad, and I'm sorry for your loss. That started in 2017.
I'm about to burn. I'm just gonna burn the light. Or I'm gonna just do the Luke toss, whatever.
I was doing the what's called the Luke thing that he does in Return, where he's like, R2?
Yeah,
I got you, brother.
Before he's off the skiff, yeah.
But I will say, I have to actually, before we start, I'm glad that you're saying this notion of parallel because I see no parallel. DC, I think I'm so proud of what they've been doing since I would say since the Joker, which I didn't see all of it, but I know people love it. I saw some of it, and it looked like a really well-crafted film, but I wasn't into it. But to me, it was like, instead of going, we'll talk about the whole history, but like to your point, like instead of them doing a course correction, which in many ways they might be doing with the Snyder verse, I think they were like, you know what? Our thing was never to have one big like autocrat, their thing was like DC. I heard Michael Uslan, who's owns the rights to the Batman movies. He's like an executive on all the Batman movies. Him saying, he's like, Marvel always had like Stan Lee, right? They always had someone up top kind of watching everything. And then Lucasfilm had that with George, and then now with Kathleen Kennedy. Look at that disdain. Whereas DC, like every kind of major character in DC publishing history had their own editor. Like Superman, I think had Jules, I forget his name now. Julie Fisher. No, oh my god, I'm totally embarrassed. They had a bunch of different big. Oh my god, they had like a bunch of different editors circulating. So there was never one unified, like, dictator that was like, it's this. I'm not saying Stanley was dictator, but like there was never one unified force or vision. It was always, all right, well, what do we want to do with the Justice League? What do we want to do with Superman? What are we doing with that? So I love that they are not like, I think, in with Batman versus Superman, they were trying to catch up to Marvel. So, and that was a huge, in my opinion, a dumpster fire. And then the Justice League was, oh my God. But we've had an amazing few years. Anyway, I say this all, we'll get into it, where I say this just to say I don't see parallels to Lucasfilm at all. So actually, let's start with, before we even get into the Batman review, tell me what you're like, break that down for me, because like, how do you see the parallels between DC movies and Lucasfilm? I'm so curious now.
Well, here's the thing. I think that they both had stumbling blocks, you know, with the more recent, with the DC films, I would say. And I would say that Star Wars definitely had those stumbling blocks going in, you know. Now, DC's stumbling blocks were a little bit different in the sense that what they were really, I think with the films, what they were trying to do was trying to sort of mirror Marvel's template.
Let's be real, catch up. They were trying to catch up real quick.
Yeah.
And it was silly.
Yeah.
It was such a,
and basically do the same thing, you know, with the Justice League as what they were doing with the Avengers stuff, you know. And they quickly sort of realized that that wasn't kind of working for them. So they had to find an alternate route. And we'll get into that, what that route was, but kind of much more interesting terrain, and started kind of defining themselves different. And that was the key thing, I think, for them, is actually finding their own identity instead of trying to copy that. With Star Wars, what their kind of battle was, they were sort of competing with the past, their own past, right? And trying to do like a soft reboot of things. And then, you know, it just splintered off into some strange directions, which we've covered in the past, you know, for different reasons. And it, at least for some people, it looks like they're starting to find some footing, because at least they have more of a, I guess, clear creative vision now that you have Favreau, you know, Filoni, those guys in charge, bringing in some of the Marvel guys. So it seems like at least they're moving in a direction where the TV stuff has worked for them a little bit. You know, I know there were mixed reviews on Book of Boba Fett, which we certainly had, and there's still questions about like, well, you know, we're not out of the weeds yet. But I think if anything, I think the parallels I see was the search for forging a new identity and a way forward. Now, they weren't exact, but I think they both did go through stumbling blocks, and they're starting to like find their way now. Although, admittedly, DC does have the leg up in this race.
I love this conversation so much, Bruce, because you're making me really see it. I mean, it's so true, because I think Lucasfilm has, and with the Star Wars franchise, their job is so tough, because I think you have one sect of people that go, anything that's not the Skywalker story, I don't want to hear. You have another group of people that goes, I don't care about the Skywalkers, I don't care about the Jedis, I want the space, you know, the space action or whatever. And then you have other people that, like, I think like you and I are just like, give me Jedis all day long. Like, to me, that's Star Wars. Star Wars is Jedis. I can get spaceships shooting each other and other things, right? What I think is that though Star Wars has such a narrow lane that even George couldn't get it right with the prequels, right? There's such a narrow lane of what audiences like, that they're really beholden to it. Whereas I think, like, to your point, like, it's making me see like where DC broke the mold, right? Like, if you look in just literally in the past year, I love so much. I feel like it's such a win for DC fans, because we have a Superman and Lois show that is flawless. I mean, it's not flawless, but like, it's like silly sometimes, but it is Superman. Like, it just taught me, like, Superman really does well on television. He always has, since the serials, since the George Reeves, you know, like, we had one really good Superman, maybe two good Superman movies, and then the rest have been really challenging or divisive, right? And so, but on television, like, I don't know anyone that hated Smallville. Again, super cheesy sometimes, but like, it was great. Like, it was its own thing. And now that we have a Superman and Lois that works, Batman really does belong in film, I think. Like, it's such a good movie. I love this movie. I want to hear your opinion. Peacemaker, like, where the hell did that come from? Did you see it yet? Peacemaker?
No, my only, I guess entry into Peacemaker was through seeing the more recent Suicide Squad. So I did see the introduction of character, and I did love how it worked in that context, for sure. But I do have to catch the series.
But again, so that Suicide Squad, so different, so director driven, so different than the 2016 debacle, which was also kind of like a Frankenstein movie, right? And then even, like, I'm surprised, like, 2014 Ramajo's, 2016 Ramajo's would die that I'm saying this, but the Zack Snyder Justice League, the 17-hour, it was like 4 hours, the 4-hour epic was really good. Like, I was blown away, and I'm like, man, I think they learned their lesson, that if you just give the director, I think Walter Hamada or some like big higher up at Warner Brothers recently made a statement, like, it was genius. They're like, you know, we really give the directors like free reign or something like that.
Mhm.
And you see it from James Gunn to Matt Reeves now. Like you're seeing this like autonomy and freedom to just take the property, do whatever you want, set it in the universe, don't set it in the universe. That freedom Lucasfilm doesn't have. And I think that's a really, like you said, I'm like, what an interesting parallel that at DC, there's this, they've created this new freedom out of trying to compete with Marvel. And then the minute they were like, you know what, they were going to do like a black label or a dark label, I think it was called. I forget what it's called, but where Joker exists, maybe Swamp Thing. You know, they had a Swamp Thing TV show. They had, God, there's a Titans show that's so good on HBO. It's so
Mhm.
like rough and gritty. So there's all these different universes. The Arrowverse, people like. I liked for the first 5 minutes, and then it got really sappy. But you have so much out there right now in DC that's quality. Because I think they're breaking the lane. Anyway, that's my law. I've been waiting to say that for a while, but.
Well, you know what? I think, you know, it works in, you know, when you do movies and you do, you know, different properties or whatever, counter programming works. It goes back to the Beatles and Stones. If you can't be the Beatles, be the Stones. And I think that's what you're finding now with DC. You know, they were kind of, I think the early direction was we got to do something like Marvel and kind of ape that formula. And, you know, found out quickly, like we all saw, you know, it didn't quite gel, even though I think there's kind of defenses to be made for those early attempts, but again, it didn't quite gel because it just didn't have its own identity.
Well, and I will say, 2016. So let's take it back all the way. So was it 2013 or 2014? We get Man of Steel. I should know this. I think it's 2013. We get Man of Steel, which
you may have blocked because of trauma. But,
it was trauma. I like, oh my God. I remember even taking it back. I remember going to 2006, seeing Superman Returns at the movie theater. And I remember I went out to dinner with my dad that day and I was angry. Like, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but I'm like, yeah, it's like Superman Returns. It just takes a piss on what you care about. I don't know. I remember I was so angry. Man of Steel was better. Like, I enjoyed it enough, but I didn't like love it. And then BVS, I remember like renouncing religion. I'm not a religious person to begin with, but like, I remember seeing BVS and being like, oh my God, like I don't believe in anything anymore. I was like, Zack, I texted a friend of mine who worked on Man of Steel with Zack Snyder and like loves Zack Snyder. He's like, oh, he's such a good guy to work with. And I said something like really nasty about Zack Snyder. And he's like, dude, he's a good guy. Like, leave him alone, you know? I was so angry after BVS. And then a few months later, I saw the director's cut. It was like they added like an hour or some 45 minutes. I don't know. And it was like, oh, okay. Like, what an interesting movie. And I think at that point, I was still, as were many fans, I think we were all kind of like, we had this mindset, and I've heard other podcasters talk about it, that we have this mindset, like, if it's on the big screen, then you're stuck with it. Like, this is what you're stuck with for the next 5-10 years. And this is the definitive thing right now. And I think now there's a podcast I listen to called The Movie Film Show. And they talk about that. It's like, well, it's the thing right now, right? Like now we have kind of retrospectively, we can see that, you know, if we don't like this Batman, like that's okay. Cause I think that they moved the schedule, but like next summer, we're going to get Michael Keaton back as the Batman in that universe. And then Robert Pattinson here. And so you have so many more options. There's the Penguin TV shows coming on HBO Max based on this universe. Like, so I think things aren't as permanent anymore. You know, if you don't like this restaurant, go to another one. So I think like I love that freedom. So anyway, I just want to say we're doing really good. I feel like my team is winning. You see, I got the Superman movie here. My team is winning. But let's get into this movie.
Thanks, Ron. Though, as we've learned, all it takes is one bad film.
But that's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. No, because there's
but you know what? And to your point, this is going to be one of my points of contention. Is that that's something I'm mixed on. More veering on, I don't enjoy it as much, is the how rapid these reboots are coming, and we'll address that when we get into the movie proper.
Bruce, let's address it right now. I'm going to make the argument that it's not a reboot.
Well, not a reboot, but like a different version of it, someone else's take on the character, seeing someone else enact it. It's almost like we were getting a lot of that with the Spider-Man films too, where I felt like. Right. You know, kind of coming up, throwing it back. I mean, it's a different age, so it's maybe irrelevant to some, and to like, you know, kind of a younger audience now. It's just kind of the way it is. But you used to have to wait ages, maybe decades, for someone new to take over or to reboot a property, or someone new to play James Bond, and you kind of had the time to acclimate to that,
Yeah.
Now I feel like they change them out so fast that you don't really form any kind of real kind of long-term attachment to any of them. It's too fast, too soon with some of these reboots, or different actors playing it. And I feel like the more you get of that, the more it dilutes it, even though it's, it offers more variety, but it kind of, I don't know, like I said, it kind of takes a little bit of the potency out of the property.
I totally hear what you're saying. Like when you go back historically, right? You go back to 2000. Again, I wish I'd gone over my dates. I want to say 2005 for Batman Begins, right? So the last Batman and Robin happened in what, 97, 95, 97, 97?
Around there, yeah, I think.
And so you have this big jump, right? Like where you waited all that time, and people were still like, I think the box office on Batman Begins wasn't crazy. But here's the thing, and this is my way into this movie. I remember going to Batman Begins, and I know the title is Batman Begins. Like Batman's in the title. I know that. I get that. But I still, like, I remember sitting in the movie theater going, wait, is this a Batman movie? And I recently rewatched some of them, like Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises. And again, you're going to laugh. Dark Knight Rises is my favorite of that trilogy. And I know it's like, so people are like, what?
Nothing surprises me with your run anymore.
I don't like love Bane or anything. I don't know. I just really love the story, and I love the idea of like Bruce getting his ass beat. Like
that was probably the best
that
part for me. That was the part, sort of having him reascend, was the most engaging part of that movie for me. What I didn't care for was the sort of the twist ending with the villains and stuff like that. And I think it was fighting an uphill battle trying to follow up Dark Knight, but that's a whole other conversation.
But they're not. Those to me didn't feel like Batman movies. Like,
right.
And at that point, I had like the Tim Burton movies maybe, like to gauge, but like there's something that didn't feel Batman-y about this. I was gonna stay away from the Batman. Okay, this is it. We're going into the movie here. So spoilers, full spoilers. Like if you guys haven't seen it, like check out now. But I was going to stay away from this movie. And a friend of mine, she's big time, she's super big time. She's a coach, and she boxered me, and she's like, you have to see this movie. You have to, if you're a DC fan, you have to see this movie. And I was like, okay, I listen to her. I do what she tells me. So I went on my birthday, and oh my God, I was like, I don't want to say I was a kid in a candy store, because it's not that kind of movie. I was surprised. 3 hours went away. Like I remember worrying before Endgame, like I saw, like, when do you go to the bathroom? And when I was like nervous about it.
Yeah.
This movie, I enjoyed. I mean, I enjoyed this movie more than anything in Phase. What are we on? 47 now with Marvel, right? Like I don't care anymore. Like after Endgame, I don't care. But like here, I was so invested and I was so engaged, and I was tired, and it didn't matter. I stayed up the whole time. I was so happy with this movie. This felt like a Batman movie. I mean, it's based on it's just, if you take like, they've been living in this like Dark Knight world, like where every movie has to be like Dark Knight since '89 Batman. I was like, this is like the next level. This is Long Halloween. This is like so Batman out of the comic books. And I never thought I'd say that about Robert Pattinson. The amount of time we spend with actual Batman, we don't spend that much time with Batman in any other movie. Like I just saw Batman Begins yesterday, and like it's like maybe 10 minutes of Batman. I don't think so. It's all Bruce Wayne. And Christian Bale's awesome, but like you're with Batman. Like there is no Bruce Wayne. He hasn't figured that out yet. Like he hasn't gone on the journey yet to like be a Bruce Wayne yet. He's just a kid who's angry, and like, oh my God, this is a Batman movie. This is the Batman movie. They're absolutely right to call it the Batman. What do you think?
Well, I find it interesting your take on it. I'm glad you're taking up the defense for it, because I don't want to be the guy to kind of shit all over it and like get all the hate mail and stuff like that, but and not have someone defending it. Not that I hated it. I didn't love it. And I had a lot more problems with it than things I liked about it. What
problems? What were the problems? What kind of?
Oh, geez. You want to get into the negatives first? You want to go there?
Share your feelings. Tell me your problems. I'm a coach. Tell me your problems.
Right off the bat. And I went into it open-minded. I didn't go into it with like any kind of agenda or to not like it, because, the trailer looked interesting. The advanced reviews sounded positive. So I'm like, okay. Here's the thing, and this is a general complaint with a lot of the recent comic book movies in general, the length. Now, I know for you, it felt like it flew by. For me, after like that first hour, which I felt was pretty engaging, it was way too long. For me, this movie was at least an hour too long. And it's a problem that is now becoming standard. This is not like the exception that you're getting an epic 3-hour comic book movie. This is now becoming the rule, and it's not a good one, because everyone now is trying to shoot for this sort of epic feel. I think that's the kind of thing you reserve for maybe the sort of end game, quote unquote, or like the, kind of cap off a long-term story, something like that. I don't think this story warranted a 3-hour length. You could have trimmed it, and I think it would have been serviced by that. I think there's very few films actually that are serviced by a 3-hour length. Now, if you were streaming this, it'd be a different thing. And so people that I've spoken to that I've asked my opinion, I say, if you're going to watch it, maybe stream it in parts, because I think to sit through it in one long thing, unless you are a Batman fanatic, it's a bit much. So there's the length. Again, with these comic book movies, this isn't Shakespeare, okay? This isn't War and Peace. A lot of this material does not summon, a 3-hour kind of self-indulgent wank fest, that's just my opinion. So that, I have a problem with these sort of longer lengths. Spider-Man may have been sort of inching sort of in that territory, but the story warranted it, and where they went with all the different surprises and stuff, I felt called for it. For me, this story was a bit convoluted too. It was not an easy thing to follow. Not to say that, you're looking for that. I know a lot of comic book defenders will be like, oh, you need things spoon-fed, whatever. It's not a matter of that, but I felt like it was stuffed with too many villains, too many henchmen, too many, crime lord kind of things. And then you have your comic book villains, some that you're sort of introducing to set up for the next one, some that are like your main event players, things like that. So the story I found very, very convoluted, and it was kind of all over the place. I hate to say it. Well, no, I don't hate to say it. So Matt Reeves, it's obvious he is a child of the 90s. It shows through in terms of, he's a Gen Xer, and a lot of his points of reference are 90s stuff, and this goes to, I know prior stuff he's done, he did Felicity and Planet of the Apes and that kind of thing. But I felt like
I love you started with Felicity. Like, that's just mean.
Well, no, I mean, you have some hardcore Felicity fans. Someone, people had to start somewhere, and then he does have the big budget experience with Planet of the Apes. That's not a put down of any of that stuff. It's just kind of showing where he's coming from. But this was really like, it was more of a David Fincher film. And it was all over the place in terms of the references and the cinematography. A lot of people make reference to Seven, which it definitely had that tone. This was a Batman film as if it was directed by David Fincher. Again, with the 90s references, with obviously the Nirvana heavily featured in the soundtrack. The way Pattinson looked in the film was, I think, also, a bit of a throwback to that. So, that was part of it. It's, I don't know. There's a lot of it that didn't work for me.
So the first thing, I want to go to your first point, which is that it's like, on one hand, Bruce,
yeah,
you're comparing it to a comic book movie. You're saying for a comic book movie, it's 3 hours. And on the other hand, Bruce, you used every other kind of high ranked, well-respected suspense movie to explain it. So Bruce, can you help me understand, which analogy are you using? Which comparison are you making, sir? Is it a comic book movie, or is it a suspense movie? Because it sounds like you're saying it's a suspense movie. In which case, a lot of those are 3 hours.
It's trying to do what The Dark Knight did, which is be both. But it was what you're doing which was a smart thing that was done by Christopher Nolan, is you create a dramatic film first that features comic book characters, because it grounds it in a realism. And that's kind of what, obviously Reeves is going for a darker tone, a more realistic tone. And it fits in line with, I think, the new sort of DC way of thinking, which is more psychologically grounded, psychologically realistic movies than the Marvel stuff. So I think there's room for it to be both. But I don't think it like that doesn't necessarily say it has to be 3 hours. And the other negative is the Pattinson's performance, which we'll get into that too. I think he's all right in terms of when he's in costume, but in terms of like, I did not buy him as Bruce Wayne, and I know that you would probably argue that that part of the character's it's emerging, it's in ascendancy. But those scenes, as far as him out of costume, did not work for me at all. I just didn't see it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I don't remember Anthony Circus. Oh wait, what's his name? Anthony
Gollum.
Yeah, right. And Caesar and everything else, right? I would have liked more time with that Alfred, because I'm like, oh my God, like him, right? Like he's Alfred, that's great. He's gonna be awesome. And he's so great in everything. Like Black Panther, he's amazing. I was expecting that to be awesome, and I didn't feel like they had any chemistry.
No.
And it was just kind of like
they tried to shoehorn it a bit with the backstory, but you didn't feel it. And part of it is because of Pattinson's performance, because it's a very one-note take on the character. Now, and this we can sort of debate this back and forth, but I think it's an interesting point to bring up. In the typical telling of most of the Batman stories, and the Bruce Wayne story, and the sort of dualistic faces that he puts on, you always had the more charismatic, playboyish Bruce Wayne, right? Maybe he'll eventually merge into that. We don't know. But I think there's a reason you have that for story purposes. You need that contrast, because if it's a one-note thing, then the Batman stuff, it doesn't really stand out. This is just, it's mopey all the time. And to have seen something more charismatic from him when he is Bruce Wayne would have been more refreshing. It didn't mean he had to play it maybe the same way as others have in the past. Maybe they didn't have to go the playboy angle necessarily, but he needed some kind of differentiator in personality, I think.
Obviously, like when you hire Michael Keaton and you get that, like, they're like, what, Mr. Mom, and that, what do they call it? They're like Beetlejuice or Mr. Mom in the Batman suit. So you have, so they're like, look, you have some scenes here without the costume, run forth, go crazy, right? And then in the Christopher Nolan movies, they talk about it, like, you need to be this thing so that attention is drawn away from you. I would make the argument, I've heard people make the argument that his Bruce Wayne sucks. And
okay, so I'm not the only one, because
you're not. I
have not really looked into it. Like, I tried to go into this pretty kind of with a clear slate. So I hadn't heard a lot. As far
I
as
hear it a lot. A lot of people are saying it, that it's like they like his Batman, but his Bruce Wayne, they're like, he's not doing much. And I've heard other people talk about it, and I really agree with it, is that I think he's just exhausted. Like the character, which that's a choice. I don't know if it's the best choice. I kind of like it that he just doesn't have anything to get. Like he's out all night, because you see how much he's Batmaning it up. And I love his relationship with Commissioner Gordon. Did you like Commissioner Gordon?
Yeah, I thought he was all right.
All right. What do you mean all right?
Well, all right. Yeah, I think there's been better versions of it, but I thought he was good.
Yeah, I thought he was so good. Like, I thought in contrast, I'm not gonna say oh my God, I'm forgetting everybody's name. Like I said, I getting off a cold here. J. Jonah Jameson. What's his name? Who played he played Commissioner Gordon in the last movie.
Yeah. I forget the actor's name.
J.K. Simmons. So I like that. He's fine. Like, I don't mind. But like Gary Oldman, I loved, right? Gary Oldman was out of, like, physically looked like year one, like Commissioner Gordon from year one. So I have a special place in my heart. But this Commissioner Gordon, like, or he's Lieutenant Gordon here. He's great in everything. I mean, he's in Marvel What If, like was it Jeffrey? Oh my God, I can't remember anyone's name. Can you look? What's his name? Jeffrey Wright. Okay. Jeffrey Wright I think he's such a good actor. I think he's awesome in this. I loved him in the James Bond, like the recent James Bond movies.
Yeah.
But I love their relationship, like him with Batman, and like how, like, trusting he is of Batman, and how like, you set up, like, Batman's never had this much time with the police, like, and
that's
you really
true.
think he's a detective. I just love it. And I go, he's spending all that time. Like, let's be real. This is a person. Like, this is still a person who also is still recovering from tragedy and trauma. And I think that we're going to see more of Pattinson's Bruce Wayne transformation and like Jekyll and Hyde in the next one because of that beautiful moment at the end, which we've never seen in a Batman movie, where he goes, you know what, I'm gonna step up, I'm gonna be a hero. Like, I'm gonna not scare kids. Like there's like at the end when the kid is scared of him, and he's like, no, it's okay. And the kid is the first one to trust him. I
Yeah.
was like, that's what's up. Like, that's who we wanted to see. So as grounded and as dark and broody, I mean, dude, there's so many comic books when they all make fun of him, like Superman and Wonder Woman. They're like, Bruce, shut the fuck up. Like, take a Paxton, shut the fuck up. Like, he's so broody. In the video games, you see it too. I know in Injustice 2, like I just played that recently, like he's just so broody. He sucks, like get over it. I mean, not get over it. That's a hard thing to say.
It's a broody character.
But so I thought like it made, like, it was just nice to be there where he's not trying to do the Michael Keaton or the Christian Bale, like, I'm going swimming, like I don't know. I just really bought it. I'm kind of embarrassed now about how much I bought it.
I think he's still finding his way in the role, and maybe that's by design. And I mean, that part did occur to me. I just wish we'd gotten maybe a little bit by the end of it, where you kind of see that, okay.
But you do, because he's writing it in his journal. He's, his diary. He's writing in his diary at the end, and he's like, I choose life.
Well, he goes through that sort of inner transformation, but again, it's like,
what are you talking about inner? He's out there in public in the light. Like, we've never seen Batman in the light. At the end, the last shot is him, like, with this beautiful backdrop of like a city falling apart, and he's up there as a symbol of hope for once, not just a symbol of, fear tactics.
I needed more.
Bruce, if you need more, watch Superman and Lois. That show.
And you know what I needed? You know what I needed less of? Some of this wokeness that kind of creeped into it too, which I felt was a little bit unnecessary. Now, here's the thing: diversity in casting, it was there. So I don't think they, but there was this one line that Zoe Kravitz threw out there about white male privilege that I thought was so calculated and so like Hollywood bullshitty that did not need to be there. I mean, there was already subtext of what they're trying to say with the, African-American, mayor-elect, and, with the casting of Kravitz and all that stuff. Fine. But that line, it did not sound like a natural line someone would spoke. It sounded like very agenda driven. And it actually took me out of the film for the majority of the rest of it.
See, it's so funny you bring that up. Like, because like I don't know. I work predominantly with women. So like, I hear that saying all the, like, to me, it was very natural,
Yeah.
Like I hear that, I talk like that all the time, and I am a white male, so it's like, now I'm going to get the hate mail. Bruce is not a white male, just so we all know.
That's right. So yeah, let's not.
Meaning he can say it, and I'm in trouble now. Is the point? The point is this, that like it's funny, things like that, like, but again, I have to say, like, I remember watching Endgame and being like, yeah, when like all the women are together, and they're like, she's not alone, she's got us, and I was like, yeah, ladies, you got this, so it's like, it's just funny because like, it's just funny that like things like that trigger people in different ways, and I think that's,
well, it can work. I feel like it worked. That kind of stuff worked better in the Marvel films because they had the characters that you actually really liked. Like they just created, instead of like really preaching like this film kind of did. I mean, it wasn't like all throughout, but that was a very preachy moment. Marvel never really did that until more recently. Like this Phase 4 stuff, they definitely have. But prior to, with like the original Avengers movies, they just built great female characters that you don't need it. All you need to do is just build the great female characters.
I would make an argument. I'm sorry. Black
Of
Widow.
course you would.
Of course, I'm going to. Black Widow was not a full character until like Civil War.
But eventually, it's still.
Or Winter
They still
Soldier,
developed that character into someone that people. It wasn't a matter of, oh, they're shoehorning this female. You never heard a lot of that stuff. It was just, this is a kick-ass character we love.
Yeah, because
with a lot of the other female characters in the Avengers movies.
Because the times were changing while these were happening. So if you look at like Iron Man 2, where she premieres, it is cringy now to watch how like you can't shoot a movie like that anymore. It's like out of the 80s where Robert Downey's like, he fully says, I want one.
Yeah.
Like you can't do. So she was objectified like no tomorrow in those first few movies, and then Winter Soldier is when she comes into her own. So that's like,
Well, hey, your buddy Zack Snyder was the one who objectified Wonder Woman with all the ass shots.
excuse
I'm
me,
not complaining,
excuse
but
me,
I am bringing up this
Joss
point.
Whedon. That was Joss Whedon.
Oh,
That was Joss
yeah.
Whedon when he took over. I never thought I'd defend Zack Snyder, but Zack Snyder actually. No, supposedly people love working with Zack Snyder, so it's not like he's not gross. Like, but Joss Whedon, there's a shot I remember, and like you always send me crazy texts with Gal Gadot. She's stunning, obviously, right? But I remember seeing. I remember I went to go see. It was one of the last movies I went to see with my ex-wife. It was Justice League, and there was a shot where it's like a low shot, like into her ass. Like you get a gynecological examination. Not just of her. I mean, you don't do gynecological examinations of people's asses, but I don't tell you how things work, Bruce. You know, you're a grown man. But there's like, you can like, it is like a weird shot, like into her, like undercarriage, and it's so inappropriate. Like, and it's like it's uncomfortable to watch. You know, why is that there? And they took it out obviously because Zack Snyder didn't shoot that shit. That is Joss Whedon being a gross fuck. The point is this. So don't throw Zack Snyder where he does.
All right. So my apologies to Zack Snyder for that. I'll just shit on him for the rest of his work instead.
I like 300.
Oh, there's something about all his little cinematography tricks and stuff like that. I mean, that's for another day. That's for another day. We don't have time to cover the sins of Zack Snyder. And here's the thing: when I've seen Zack Snyder interviewed and stuff, great guy. I mean, just comes across as a really cool guy. It's just his films, they're ridiculous.
But this is why I feel so good about life right now, because I remember when it was like the dude who they're giving Superman to the guy that did Watchmen. Nobody loved Watchmen. You're giving him the crown jewel of DCIP. Like, what the fuck? Like, I remember being like shocked at that. Like, that made no sense to me. Watchmen wasn't like a big hit, but they're like, here, let's fill you up. You know, anyway, so that's my Zack Snyder opinion. But I say that to say that he wasn't a sick, and you watch, I mean, even how he uses Wonder Woman in Batman vs Superman, pretty good. Like, she's pretty solid in that.
For sure.
So anyway, we digress about the thing, but I don't know. I didn't have any. Did you like Zoe Kravitz though? Zoe Kravitz
I thought she was fine. You know, it's not the best Catwoman I think we've seen, but you know, that's a hard. Again, that's a tough one because it's also. I mean, is this what the best we're getting from the character, or is that another character that's in development? And that's the thing that's I guess kind of frustrating about this movie for me.
It's world building. It's a lot of world building.
Maybe that's what it is. It's like, do we need to do more world building? This shit's established. We kind of know what it is. So if you're gonna do a new Batman, I guess unless this is gonna be the creative team that's gonna do several
well, they're building out
with this, then there's no need to do as much of that world building, if this is kind of a 1 or 2 off or whatever. So
see, but she is like, I thought it was such a good Catwoman performance, like, and it was very toned down and subdued, and like I like her in everything else, like too, but like I was just like, there's shots where it looks just like Year One or like the Selena Kyle from Batman Year One, the book, and I was like, because like she's not Eartha Kitt or Julie Newmar. Like, is that like, she's not like
Julie Newmar. Yeah.
Newmar. Yeah. She's not like, I'm messing up all the names. She's not like the Catwoman that
Julie,
I know.
Don't mess up Julie Newmar.
I know, that is the greatest Catwoman of all time. Or like Eartha Kitt, right? Like those to me were like, or Michelle Pfeiffer was cool. Like she was good in it, but that, I don't know, I never found Catwoman to be that like intensely over the top. I always found her to be like really cutting edge and like really sneaky and like resourceful and like you just can't trust her, and she's really dark. I loved Zoe.
It's a great character to play, so it's hopefully we'll see a bit more. I kind of felt again like it's all in development or in ascendancy, so I felt like you were getting very half-baked versions of all these characters. I mean, even the villains, with the exception of Riddler, who was finally kind of given a full piece. It's like everything else is, you're not getting really a full Penguin, like that's being set up. You're not getting full Joker, that's being set up. So it's like it was all set up
Well, even the Joker, I love how they're setting him up. Like, I know you're like, that's not the point, Ron. But I read that they're not going to use him necessarily in the next movie. They wanted him to be like a Silence of the Lambs, like
Yeah,
right where he's like an advisor to They shot it. They just recently released a deleted scene where
I
he's
saw it.
like, yeah. So it's an interesting take. It's interesting, but with I thought John Turturro's Falcone, I thought was the best Falcone we've ever had on camera. Like,
Yeah,
I thought he was a fully baked character. Like, I thought he was great. Like, Paul Dano, I thought was great. Like, what a vulnerable character. Best Riddler we've ever seen. I mean, outside of Jim Carrey, of course. I think
I called it. By the way, I called this Riddler many years ago. I just want to throw this in because I want to basically, I guess, pat myself on the back for this. But I remember I was with my my brothers and another buddy. We were in Colorado when Dark Knight came out, and we went to go see it there. We come out of there, and of course, we're buzzing.
yeah.
Kind of brilliant film, and Heath's performance and all that stuff. And obviously, Heath had passed. We knew that. So we're like, man, where would you go next? What villains you have to draw on, and we're going through sort of the classic villains. You have Penguin and Riddler, and I said, what they have to do with Riddler, if we use Riddler, which it's a great character to use, but you have to definitely take it out of the campiness of the '60s show and also Jim Carrey's performance. And I said then, what they should do with Riddler is make him a Saw-like character, where the puzzles are more about that and about having to sort of salvage people from torture or destruction to the city. And that's pretty much what they did. So I mean, obviously it was a good idea kind of floating in the ether. It was I think it was the exact right move to go with for the Riddler now.
100%. And I remember at the time, like, it seemed like that's, I like that they went with Bane, which is like so random at the time. Right? Really? But so I agree with you that would have made sense in that world. This is my final question for you, because we kind of like, we're breaking it up. Like, I hear you, you didn't love the movie, but like, I love the movie. Final question to you then. Where do you think they go from here on the Batman side? So there's going to be a Penguin show. Colin Farrell, which phenomenal performance, right?
Great performance. Yeah. And that's one
I didn't see him. He's not in it.
Yeah, exactly. A+ on the makeup for him, because they really did a convincing job. I'm looking for him. Maybe there were a few scenes where in the eyes I saw, but it was just like, no, he vanished, so I thought that was one of the pluses. Couple other pluses I just want to quickly point out. I did like the title card, because it was a nice little kind of throwback. I really did dig the look of that. I felt like the new headpiece also was a little bit more rounded out, had a throwback to the other stuff. The set design, I thought a lot of the set design was really cool. And I still give them points, even with this film, for DC, again, going in their own direction, which is a little darker, a little grittier, a little psychologically more nuanced. So I just, instead of just kind of going through all the negatives, which I did, I want to at least throw out some positives that I saw.
And that's why I say it's such an authentic Batman movie, because I started reading, I don't remember, this was like a while ago, but I started reading Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, this is really shticky. Like, this is just because a lot of the, not backlash, but a lot of the critiques of the Marvel movies is that there's never, like, the scenes are not that serious. Like, it'll try to be serious and then someone will crack a joke, right? And I was like, oh, the comic books are just like that. Like, I didn't read Marvel that much growing up. I was like the Hulk, and I love Spider-Man. My kid loves Spider-Man. We watched the movies, but not the book. And I was like, oh, this is really shticky. Like, this is kind of a serious topic. Like, there's like really serious elements, but DC is this, like, it's a detective story. It's the gritty, it's like the bloody, and like when he's beating the people, like, it's so cool. But so I would say it's that. But where do you think, my final question to you though is, obviously we thought the Nolan version was going to be the gritty version, but like Nolan version seems like an MGM musical from the 30s compared to this, right? Like, it's lavish compared to this. Do you see a world, and I heard some other podcasters talk about this, do you see a world in which they do like more of the fantastical characters from here, like where they do like Mr. Freeze and they do Clayface, and I'm totally lifting this from the other podcasters. I'm just curious, like, what what you think about that. Do they do it?
It depends, because it seems like what DC is doing right now is they've got like a couple strands going, both in edgy directions, but you've got the edgy comedy and then the edgy drama, right? So it depends, like with the characters, what tone they want to do, but they can go either way, just depending on, I think, start with the character, the authenticity of the character and kind of what the story's centered around or what people like about the characters. And then I guess go from there. But they've carved out the sort of niche where if they want to do comedy, they can do an R-rated, comedy if they want, and kind of go for that, more of that direction. Or, do something like this, which is PG-13, almost skirting on R.
It's pushing it.
It was really close. I mean, it was probably maybe a few essential little edits that saved it, or maybe not making it as graphic as something like 7, but the tone was there, and it could have easily been an R-rated. It was just for probably money purposes, give it that PG-13, for distribution and stuff. But I think it's, they could do both, but I think still stay on that track of like, you've carved out this more sort of authentic path of your own. Just keep finding good directors, good writers that are passionate about the material, and just keep going from there, and whether they want to build it out or just make it more individual stories, maybe it's instead of, kind of this multiverse thing or building out like kind of multiple sequels, just you have this world of characters in front of you. Just start making these kind of interesting one-offs and go from there, and give some really great directors these opportunities to explore and create and play in their new sandbox.
100%. I'm glad you said that, because like I know they're already now fast tracking probably like the Batman 2, or I don't need it. Like I don't need another one of this world. Other people do. They just want to sit in it. Like that's great. Power to you. But I just want to say, I love the fact when you said that, I was like, I feel so great about my team, because like the best part is I don't have to watch She-Hulk. Like meaning I do on the Marvel side, like I have to watch the fucking She-Hulk show. Like Bruce, I don't want to watch, but I had to watch Hawkeye. Like,
yeah,
like I had to, like I was forced to, because there might be 1 10-second thing that like sets up 7 other things. And right, I love that you can go into this movie and it doesn't matter. Like if I don't see this movie, it doesn't matter. But if I enjoy it, great. Like it's not all interconnected. I'm so proud of them for just to your point. I love the fact that they can do one-offs. There's so many different aspects. There's so many different sandboxes. You can watch the Arrowverse, or there's like the Titan shows on HBO Max. I mean, you can watch the Michael Keaton Batman. You can watch Rob Pattinson Batman. Like something for everyone, buffet. So I just love it. It's an embarrassment of riches, and I'm so grateful to the executives at DC. They're on the right track. Peacemaker's great. Did you? Oh, no, you didn't see it, so I don't want to ruin the ending. But you have great, like, I don't know. It's I love it. I just love it. I love everything that's happening in DC right now. So grateful and so excited to talk to you. It always comes back to Star Wars, but it's gonna get better.
Well, we'll address that in the next video for sure, because we have piggybacking off of the Obi-Wan trailer. I think we need to catch up before that show premieres, and catch people up to date on kind of what the state of Star Wars is and how we feel about this Obi-Wan, because you and I haven't really talked about it at length. Just kind of see, especially since on paper we're both theoretically getting what we want, which is a Jedi-centered show with a character that we care about. And this is probably like the last gasp for me in terms of a character I'm going to care about, and whatever Lucasfilm does from there is their business. But it'll be very interesting to see. So we'll have to approach that next. And one thing too, before we sign off, I just want to give a very special thanks to our good buddy, Michael Noland, over at The Bottom Line. I'm going to kind of go into Stone Cold's rap there, but he has a great YouTube channel called The Bottom Line, and he has been a supporter of ours. He likes what we do. And his is a channel that was originally like a tech and editing advice and those kind of things. And it's morphed more into like a classic rock analysis channel. He does great work.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, he covers all the canonical bands that we all love and care about. And I mean, he is like first generation rock and roll. Like he's seen it all in real time. And he just has great takes on all of this stuff. And he's not afraid to share his opinion. He's very forthright with that.
He said he was the one that was at the concert, the Who concert, where Keith Moon passed out, right?
Amazing. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, he's lived it, and again, he just has great insights to share, and he's tracking all these sort of canonical bands, Zeppelin, Beatles, Floyd, kind of taking you on the journey with their albums. So he does great work. We want to thank him. And for those of you kind of watching, if you get a chance and love classic rock and love great analysis of that, like we do, or as we're passionate about it, check out his channel because he's equally passionate. And I get a big kick out of watching all his stuff. So.
All right. Well, thank you. That was a great talking with you about this stuff. I hope it's just fun for people to listen to us kind of, like put all the shit on the table. It's like we like, I love when other podcasters, there's like, okay, we're gonna talk about Batman. They sequentially go through the movie. And we're just like, let me bring up something that like Steamboat.
Well, there's so much interconnectivity with this stuff, and it's so. I know we do tend to kind of go off on these tangents, but some of them they do kind of come to bear the direction of where a lot of this stuff is going. So
because everybody's competing though, and I think that's what I'm excited to talk to you guys, like, because it's hard to like not look at just one IP right now without examining how it parallels the other ones that are killing it at the box office or whatever. And certainly, again, as a DC person, it's always like, I don't know. I mean, I have to say, like, my world in the DC was because my buddy Joe at the time, when we were kids, he told me to be a DC person. I was like, well, yeah, okay. Like, I just kind of got into it, and it just made more sense to me. And so I've always had this in my heart, like, where I'm like, yeah, I know Marvel characters are more dynamic, but I mean, like Hal Jordan, he's like a pretty tortured soul. Guy Gardner, like, these guys are messes on the inside.
Yeah.
They're not as bad as Marvel, but Marvel is more complex. I get that. So I get the depth of, but so it's, as a DC person, it's hard not to bring up every other, iconic IP when you're talking about your character.
Well, they're all influencing each other too. That's the thing. And then you have to do that, because if you're really paying attention to what's going on, you're going to tell me that, people weren't paying attention to the fact that, even within Marvel, certain films like The Eternals failed, and they were trying to use the excuse of, COVID and people not going to the box office. All of a sudden, Spider-Man, record-setting film, so you don't have those easy excuses to kind of draw on. So people are paying attention to what's going on sort of within Marvel, within Lucasfilm, within DC, and then you have other stuff on, with television properties and Cobra Kai success and things like that, like how to, successfully use legacy and stuff like that. They're all paying attention to what each other's doing. And you can see the little imprints, even if it's, again, to define yourself in contrast to that, which is what DC has intelligently done, with by keeping their eye on Marvel.
Because as of this recording right now, it's March 27th, when we're recording this, they just pushed the slate of the DC movies back, or they moved some stuff around. So
yeah.
They brought up Shazam 2, which
Black Adam was pushed, yeah.
Black Adam's pushed. And then The Flash is pushed to next summer. And I could see where that's really smart, because again, we have a Batman this year. So the big thing is Michael Keaton's coming back for that one, right? So it's like maybe too much Batman in 1 year. I get that. And then also, to your point, we just had, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland all in one movie, setting up the multiverse. Then we're going to have the Multiverse of Madness coming out in May. So it's like, for DC, even though DC has been trying to do a Flashpoint movie for years, I think it's smart. I think to your point, they're listening and they're going, okay, well, let's just not compete. Let's just let Marvel right now is, leading the race for now. I don't know, after Eternals though, like, I'm just kidding, but Spider-Man, they brought it back. But, and I like that they're saying, okay, let's just, if we're gonna do our own thing, let's do our own thing. Let's not compete. We'll push our multiverse movie later. Even though we've been doing multiverse in the Arrowverse for years, every year they were doing a multiverse thing. Whatever, it doesn't matter, Bruce, it's fine. So anyway, that's my opinion on this stuff. It's all interconnected. You're saying it's all interconnected. And it's a pleasure to have a Batman movie that's not interconnected, that's in its own world. So I give this movie a thumbs up. You give it a...
Yeah, I give it I guess it's between thumbs down and thumbs in the middle, because again, there were certain elements I like, but I think if really we're kind of, pressed against the wall, I'd have to go thumbs down on this one. Although we'll see where it's going, because I just to full disclosure, I didn't like the first Christopher Nolan Batman. So there is ways that you can, if you're kind of doing building blocks and improve. So if they come back and do like a much better version where these characters have, okay, they've kind of gone through this initial trial and you kind of tweak and perfect the characters later. I know that that can still be done because I was, again, shocked by how much better Dark Knight was in Batman Begins. So
you're open. You'll give him another shot, another date.
For sure. I'm open to it because, again, you could see there's certain things that could work, but I think a lot of it hinges on where they go with Pattinson and what, you know, what he does. I think a lot of it's resting on his shoulders. So we'll see.
And again, I would make the argument that he played Batman, like, and he's a fan. So it's like, it makes it worthwhile. Like, he is like that to me. And I was surprised, dude. I can't believe I'm saying Robert Pattinson, but like, he was Batman. Anyway, I'm such a fan of this movie. Yeah. So my question to you, my final question. I've said that a few times. Though, don't you, if you're open, you're saying you're open. If you're open to this, aren't you? And even though you gave it a thumbs down, didn't you care about the characters here more than anything that's come out of Phase 4 so far of Marvel? Look how serious you're getting.
I like the more recent Spider-Man more, and also to that point, I was not a fan of any of the prior Spider-Man films of these recent ones, other than maybe his participation in the Avengers movies.
Yeah.
But up until this point, I just haven't liked it. And again, I don't think they're for me necessarily. It's more like teen drama up until this point. But just with this one, I felt like they just way upped their game. And obviously they had this unlimited, I mean, they were given free reign in terms of the sandbox and stuff. Right. So what's not to love? But they did it right too. I mean, there's ways that you could have really messed that up too. So yeah, I think I was just as indifferent as with the other Phase 4 stuff, with the exception of, like I said, the recent Spider-Man, the No Way Home. So
okay, we could talk more about that, but I'm with you 100%. Okay, I just had to ask. All right, thank you so much for watching another episode. We're always like, we're gonna keep it short, and then we don't. We just, we have a lot to say. So thank you for watching or listening to the full hour of the R&B show. Stay tuned for next time.
Yes, thank you.